the line.
Lauren and I go toppling down.
Hi.
A.
All right. I need notes because my memory is horrible. Actually, no, I need notes because I've been stalking these three. Seriously. So you're all probably wondering what this panel is about, even though it's like right up there. So we're going to talk about brand. We've been talking about brand a lot. I know I just jumped right into this. I'm actually amazed that there's so many people here, and I want to make this action-packed. That's my job. I'm not supposed to share any information about myself or any of my opinions, so it's all about their opinions. So first of all, I'm going to share why I'm excited about this panel. First of all, Mike earlier today said, this word brand is something we just throw around. I think that's super accurate, and we have three people here that, as I've been stalking them, I had to make sure they know about brand, because I just got thrown on the panel. Because Dave and Dave, they just do that to me sometimes, but I do that to them too, so I totally get why. So I don't know any of these people. That's actually not quite true. I do know one of them. You can guess which one eventually. I've known her for a long time, so you already kind of started giving it away. So David Cancel says, being first in the mind of customers, that's what brand is. And I'm a little more crass, so what I say is you build a brand when you've carved out a piece of somebody's brain. I think that's the most accurate way I can think about it. So basically, if someone's walking down the street and they think about your brand, you've got them, even when your brand's nowhere around, right? There are some brands out there that do that to you. I mean, the one I'm holding in my hand that I'm going to be addicted to this whole time, I'm not tweeting, although I might be during the panel. Well, all of you should be, because we should be trending worldwide, or I think DG is not going to have a job after this. Right, DC? I'm looking for them. They're not around. This kind of sucks. All right. I promise we'll get right to it. First, I'm going to give a quick intro of these three, and then they're going to introduce themselves. The only reason I want to do a quick intro is because I've been stalking them. So that's Joanna over there. I'm not going to say who she is or what she does, but her Twitter bio is perfect for this panel.
Uh-oh. What is it? She's
a builder of beautiful brands. Right? Perfect?
Yeah.
Okay. And Lauren, she's a digital junkie and New Yorker based in San Francisco. I'm a digital junkie too, since I was 8. And Michael. Oh, Michael. Always thinking?
Yeah.
It's like a brother from another mother for me.
I know.
All right. So now we're going to start with Joanna. And I've got a couple things. Let me go get the right notes now. I'd like you to introduce yourself, what you do and where you do it, kind of the obvious stuff, right? And then I got a good one. Name a favorite brand of yours that's not the one you work at right now.
All right. Jumping right in. So I'm Joanna Lord. I'm the CMO of ClassPass. Hopefully some of you have heard of it. We're pretty big here in Boston. We have a deep history with the city, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit as we talk through these topics. ClassPass has been there about 2 years. It's my 7th startup. All of my companies have been early to mid-stage. I'm very much addicted to that kind of season. When you kind of come in, you might have product market fit. Some of them had it a little bit later. And you have to stand up a marketing org. You have to stand up a brand that can carry you. You have to bring together the right team to build it. And stand up an engine that kind of grows with the company as it scales. So that's kind of my favorite challenges. And that's very much what I'm doing at ClassPass right now. So let's see, favorite brand that is not the brand I work at right now. I have so many favorite brands. Okay, so I think I'm a retail junkie, and I think a lot of people that love brand tend to get inspiration from emerging retail chains because it is really hard to break into that world and actually have something that stands out. There are many companies for many years that have tried to be in the minds of consumers, and I think Glossier is probably a brand that I'm very much into right now. For those how many people of you have heard of Glossier? Yeah, I like it. And when you think about how young this brand is, that's pretty inspiring. But they're kind of coming at it from a subculture niche. They're coming at it from very specific consumer. They didn't try to be things to all people. And yet they're in an expansion season right now, and they're growing into new demographics in a very fluid way. And they started from a community. They started from a blog. It was just a blog writing about beauty, and then emerged the need for this type of product. And so I'm very inspired by the way they're doing it. It's very organic, it's very fluid, and they're not trying to be more than what they are. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cool.
Hey everybody, I'm Lauren. So what do? I am VP of Marketing at Box. Easiest way to understand what I do there is I lead performance marketing, strategy, analytics, branding, creative, and I have a big new focus right now on post-sales and how you actually build out this comprehensive customer lifecycle. And we're looking a lot at B2C companies and B2C organizations because B2C does this extremely well and thinking about customer lifetime value. And it's not just how you close the deal, it's about how you build this really deep relationship with a customer that only gets bigger and better over time, and then these customers turn into advocates, which is something B2C does really well and B2B kind of fails on. So I am on a mission right now to completely change the way, at least at Box, and really how B2B marketers start looking at customers. So you think about customers from the moment you interact with them and how you build out this comprehensive customer lifecycle for them. So it's super fun, really exciting. They let me kind of do what I want, which is nice, and includes coming to Boston to see all of you. The brand that I'm obsessed with right now, especially because Joanna and I just talked about it, is Barry's Bootcamp. Has anyone gone there? It is like my addiction in this world. It's a super intense workout brand. Why I find it fascinating is they are popping up in all of these different cities, but it is holding true to these core values, and it's not just about when you walk into a studio and the logo and the branding is the same. It's every single instructor, every person that works there is a brand advocate and represents who that brand is in every single interaction. And they choose people to work there that embody, that really clearly embody the brand. And then everyone who starts going to these classes then become these much bigger and sort of prouder advocates after that. I find it really, really fascinating how they're building this out in a really successful franchise model. Also, there's 2 studios in Boston right now, and I've gone to them once yesterday and once again tomorrow, or later today, because that's the thing that this creates within you. Yeah.
Cool. I'm Michael. I oversee brand and creative marketing at WeWork. Are there any WeWork members here today? Awesome. Nice. Cool. We have 3 open locations in Boston, 1 about to open, so if you've never been, go check it out. So my day-to-day is high-level brand stuff, so we're expanding a lot around the world, and a big part of my job is to make sure that as we grow, we hang on to the soul and kind of integrity of who we are. And I do a lot of content, so I oversee our graphic design, copy, video, photography, and really I love to tell stories. That's why I got into this job, and I feel very fortunate that every day I get to do that for a really inspiring brand. As far as brands I really admire, I love music, so I really am impressed with what Spotify's done in the past couple years. Particularly when you think about in response to the launch of Apple Music, they sort of doubled down on their own identity and ran some really great outdoor campaigns in New York where they kind of poked fun at people in Williamsburg who listen to Justin Bieber and did some really great targeted out of home. And I also think that they do a really good job at focusing a lot on an individual experience, so really using data to find out what kind of music you like and serving that up to you at the right time. But making an individual experience easily shareable with people in your network. And so I think I'm really impressed with them and am a big advocate for what they do.
Thanks for the introduction. And your favorite brand? I am going to share mine. Are these pants? Are these jeans? That's the question I have, first of all. Anybody guess? Are they jeans?
They look like them.
They're not jeans.
They're not jeans.
They're from my favorite brand, Uniqlo. They're like jogger jeans. They're so cool. You two know what I'm talking about. They are so cool. I wear them all the time now.
I never wear real pants anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my favorite brand. These are not jeans. Okay. Nice. So on that note, everything old is new again. And obviously there's more competition than ever before. So I'm going to start off really lightweight because this is not a loaded question. So any of you can start in all of these questions. I don't really have many rules. I'd rather have fun. Why is brand so important today? you don't feel like answering, don't answer. It's cool.
I can try to start.
Go for it.
And then go. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
We're all way too polite.
I know, I was like, are you? Am I?
Wait, is
Am
anyone?
you?
We'll get used to
I
it.
can start picking on all of you. I don't need to be polite. So.
All right, go for
I
it.
might just do that.
No, I feel like an obvious start is that there's just so much competition for your attention. So you're you're looking at your phone right now, and I feel like if I wasn't up here, I'd probably be looking at my phone on some channel that brands can reach me, and because of that, there's a lot of clutter. And I think when you say brand, I think having an ownable point of view, both in terms of voice and who you are and what stories you're telling, I think are extremely important so that you can stand out from that clutter. So I think that's just kind of an obvious way to start it, is just to differentiate from competition.
And I completely agree with you. So one of the things I mentioned was sort of I'm old school digital marketer, and which I find hysterical when I say that digital at all is old school. And I've been in the digital space for 15 or 16 years. And I remember when it first started, all you needed to do to win as a company was to be better at digital, to know tactics, to know techniques. That's all you needed to do to win, was to be slightly better at digital. And now it's table stakes. Now everybody is good at digital. Now it doesn't matter if your website ranks a little bit higher, or your ads, or you're able to target slightly better on social or paid search. The way you stand out now has to go back to how strong is your brand? What is your core story? What are your key differentiators? And you used to be able to win by being good at digital, and now you're able to win if you were good at digital and you've got a really interesting, compelling story. You know who your target audience is, and you're able to better differentiate and market it. And that's why I think brand in a lot of ways went from, I'm also 15 years ago being probably slightly less necessary to actually win and grow, to being the thing that will accelerate growth for your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like there's some macro trends that this all points to, is like it's an opt-in culture, right? Mm-hmm. So you opt in with your phone, and then the second that they decide to opt out, the chance of you getting back on is like near impossible. Mm-hmm. The platforms that exist out there are facilitating. So I don't really get to market to people, as we all know, like they market to each other. So at best, I get to try to influence the way you talk about me to someone else. And all my marketing is done on these facilitation platforms. And then I think the third macro trend that we think a lot about, and this is just particularly because of our demo, but millennials and the growing younger audiences of consumers, they are actually identifying more deeply with these brands, and they carry the identification as more deeply baked into their fabric. So you'll actually see, if you look at an NPS of like a millennial audience, they tend to be more of a promoter or a detractor. They won't sit in passive. And so we're just seeing this like audience kind of come up, and they have stronger opinions, and those opinions are them. They're not their opinions, they're like me. And so I think if it's become so much more important that they can kind of look at you and like it's part of their fabric, because it's just going to be the way that they market you. So I think some of those trends are actually playing into this rising conversation around brand. Not necessarily new, but definitely kind of demands that if you don't get into it and get into it deeply with them, they'll opt out, and like good luck trying to buy your way back in.
Yeah, I also think we touched a lot on digital and online, but because of that, like offline is a real opportunity.
Mm-hmm. People talk in person now.
Yeah, and you can make more of an impact in those experiences. Mm-hmm. So I'd actually say like that could be how you stand out, is by carrying that narrative from online into in-person experiences.
Totally agree.
I'm not seeing enough tweets. More tweets? I'm watching.
None of
I'm
us have our
retweeting
phones,
too. I have
so
a couple
we can't.
followers. They'll see it. Anybody?
I
throw
could
some
start
tweets.
tweeting, but I think it'd get awkward.
Yeah, it would be weird if we were
No, that's
up
my
here.
job. That's my job. I don't have anything to do here.
Rude.
So thank you all for sharing what you folks think about brand. I think it's so important. I mean, I'm wearing a brand on my shirt, but you probably don't know it, right? Okay, never mind. That didn't work. So how do all of you think about brand at your companies? I think obviously you've shared your point of view on brand, and that probably shapes how you think about it, but looking for some like real insights about how the company thinks about brand and how that impacts things.
I'll jump in because ours is kind of fast, but it's one of the reasons that I went to ClassPass when I was like considering where I wanted to go next. I actually made the move from Seattle to New York, and I was considering San Francisco companies. When Lauren and I were talking, I was like, should I come live near you? And then I was considering New York companies, and I was looking for a company that saw brand as a growth lever. And it was very specific to me that the executive team was all in on it as a proactive strategy and not a reactive conversation. And I think a lot of companies talk about it in this way of like, oh, that would be against brand, or what would that do to our brand? And like, what the hell does that even mean? And that's the conversation that at best the CMO gets to have at the board meeting. Like, I don't know what that'd be like for our brand. Like, shoot me if that's my conversation. And so for me, it was more about if I'm actually investing, is it like represented in the P&L? Like, what does it mean to invest in brand at this company? What does it mean to track brand at this company? What does it mean when the product team is held against brand metrics? What does it mean when CX is set up as a brand engine? And not just macros, but do they deeply understand how to talk about us? Do they deeply understand how to raise the flag if like we're going against what we believe are our tenets? So it was a very intentional conversation I had, and we do look at it as a growth lever. So it's very much represented in my budget as a line item, and it's got many initiatives against it. We'll talk about that later, and many metrics against it. And we've had a crazy couple of years, and it's been fun to actually see that it's not just marketing that talks about this. Every team does.
And then for us, it's been interesting because when I first got to Box, when we started to think about brand, it's, well, we need to rebrand. So what's our color palette and what's our font choice, which is the most basic way to think about a brand. It was really to build consistency. And then we sort of went another step and said, well, we need to think about category development. So how we're using brand to redevelop our category. We used to be enterprise file sync and share, which is like file sharing, but we said this isn't the right category for us to be in. How do we now develop a new category, which is cloud content management? And then we kept going and said, well, this is great, and this is about who we are saying to market that we are, but how do we think about brand a little bit differently? And I love that Joanna brought up CX. Sort of customer experience is, again, a really big facet of a lot of B2C companies, but on the B2B side, not a lot of companies think about, how do I think about customer experience, and then how do I think about, which we are kind of referring to, and also don't tweet this phrase because I'll get in trouble, is like, how do we build the cult of Box? And how do we build these like passionate brand advocates the way that I'm addicted to Barry's Bootcamp and poor people that run into me on the street, it's all I talk about. How do I do that for Box? And we are an enterprise software company. So where we are now taking the brand is, yep, here's a consistent color palette, here's consistent font, this is our elevator pitch, this is our new category, great. But how do we turn brand into something a lot more tangible and track every experience and touch point that a customer has with us and make sure that is the right representation of who we are, what we want them to feel, and then how do we start to programatize these kind of moments of delight and moments of happiness to turn that into these passionate sort of fans and build this ecosystem of advocacy. So that's been our evolution in the last 2.5 years, which is really kind of an interesting place to be on the B2B side.
Yeah, I think you said it in the beginning, brand is a huge word. So it can and does mean separate things, including visual identity and content. And I think those things are important, but at WeWork, we kind of see them, or kind of think of brand in two separate, I would say, pillars. So the first one is our intention and kind of what we lead with. So while our product is workspace and building community, our intention has always been more than that. It's been about bringing people together, and we're a mission-driven company, and so a lot of our work, or hopefully all of our work, aligns to that mission. And externally, we want to make sure that we're communicating that in everything that we do. And then I think product and brand are so intertwined. I think it's hard to separate them, especially when you think about what we do, where I sit on a brand team in New York, but a member could walk into a building in China, and I have no control over what that experience is like. So to your point, like, it's looking at the entire life cycle of a user, and from awareness to consideration to evaluation, like understanding where we can provide value, and looking at all those touch points and deciding where we can actually influence the way people feel about what we do. So yeah, I think I'm a big believer in product and brand being kind of the same thing. And then, of course, visual identity and fonts create that consistency, so there's familiarity amongst consumers. But yeah, it's everything. So it's a fun job.
All of you touched on this, and it's like probably one of the most heated topics. So I'm going to go for it. But all of you touched on it, and I promise what's coming even after this is even better. My questions are great. So how do you measure brand?
We have like a lot of different metrics that we use. I'll throw out a couple, but like varying ways. Each of these has their own season. All of them are reported on consistently, but like sometimes we try to influence some, and others we just kind of like let sit in maintenance mode, and it's more directional. But most certainly NPS, flawed method, but still directionally gives us value, especially when we start to slice and dice it by tenure or city. We look at kind of CSAT and CX. We look at brand traffic, direct traffic. We look at K-factor and viral coefficient, so it's probably the most important one for us. ClassPass was built on word of mouth, and like we've had a lot of seasons of like sometimes that was used as a good thing, sometimes it was a challenge as we like dealt with business model challenges. And so, but for us, it was like, can we keep the level of conversation up? There's obviously kind of press mentions, directional features, whether or not they're positive sentiment or negative. And then I think we're a marketplace, which I love because marketplaces are hella complicated to build, and I find them to be super fun and challenging. But we also have all this brand on the supply side. So I have all of these fitness instructors and gym owners, and it like matters what they say. And if you've ever run a marketplace, you know that like they're actually marketing to the consumer just as much as I get a chance to. And so what they're saying really matters. So those are all like trackable metrics. The other things that we pour over, as I'm sure everyone does, is every single CX response, and we're lucky enough to have very vocal members. We try to understand kind of the streams that are coming in from the social platforms, and then anything qualitative that we can get our hands on. So we stood up UX research pretty early, so we have user insights. We've got qualitative focus groups that happen twice a month. We're meeting with our supply side with a customer advisory board once a quarter, just trying to get as much in as we can. So there's kind of those quantitative metrics that are ongoing and these qualitative ones that we supplement with. Cool. Some of them.
Only a teeny tiny bit to add on, because if you just follow what Joanna said, you'll be 10 times better than everybody, than the majority of people. The only other things that we started to look at, we started to look at, can we do these bigger brand campaigns, and how do we build our brand in key markets? I am very performance driven, very numbers driven. So even though I've got brand in my remit, I also get yelled at by a sales team if I don't, grow the business. So one of the things we looked at was, can we do targeted brand campaigns in key regions and key metros, and then come back and say, what does market penetration in those metros look like? So I might not be able to directly track pipeline and revenue back to marketing, because you should never measure a brand campaign on how many exact trackable dollars that brand campaign brings in, because you're going to miss the point in the bigger picture. It's not a demand gen campaign, but I also need to prove value. So we looked at an increase in market penetration. We also looked at metrics with the sales organization and said, what does your win rate look like? What is your deal velocity changing? And can we make it easier for salespeople to sell if we run a brand campaign in those regions? So that was our sort of that was more of our correlatory metrics, which has been really, really interesting to see.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with everything you both said. I think to try to think about it from a qualitative perspective, because it is really hard to measure, to your point, like you don't want to miss the big picture. One thing that we've struggled with is that when we started, we were really focused on like small companies, so 1 to 20 person early stage startups. But as we've developed, our sort of target audience has expanded to mid-market and enterprise companies. And so one thing that's kind of interesting to look at is when you do get press, kind of seeing how that reporter describes the company. So if they say WeWork, a co-working startup for small businesses, I think you kind of you want to focus more on telling that story, so that narrative changes. In addition to all the quantitative, I think metrics that you can look at, like direct referral or churn metrics. Those are all really important. But a lot of it's a long game, and having commitment to telling that bigger story and hoping that you get there. So.
Damn, I was in the middle of a tweet.
We
Let's
could keep
attention.
going.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's so right, though. The between the comma statement, I don't know if enough marketers think a lot about that. And it's like, if you're not getting picked up with the right between the comma statement, like you have table stakes problems.
Yes.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
If you have to like go back to the report and be like, we're not a subscription company, we're a marketplace, that's a problem. You're probably spending too much time on the brand book.
I think the dream is to not have a between comma statement where they're just like, ClassPass, but
If it's the wrong one, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So there's a lot of ways to measure brand. You have to use all of them in order to be effective. I also would sum it up, because there's a whole nother section here. There's 3 questions in it, so I'm going to sum this one up, because I think all these points are great. What I heard, though, was that there are different metrics for different businesses to some extent, right? And so I think that's the key point. And between the 3 of you, you've got all bases covered, B2B, B2C, and something weird.
Something in between. Yeah, I was going to say, like, we're
Experience company, really.
yeah. Well, I think we're a B2B product that wants to build a B2C brand. So like, it's great if people know about us, but if the right people don't know about us, then the business fails. So it is something weird.
Awesome, I got it right. So in this next section, y'all should be taking a lot of notes. I know many of you already have been. Also, thanks for bumping up the tweet volume. We need to make sure DG has a job after this, so if you could bump it up a little bit more, that'd be great. I promise this will be insightful, or like my job's on the line and I won't be able to moderate panels anymore. Also, most people think panels suck. This panel doesn't suck, right?
No.
Real-time
All right, awesome.
response.
Yeah. There's another panel later, right?
We're gonna
Real-time response.
we're gonna do a quick net promoter score.
I know.
I like
everyone
that
hold up their
idea.
hands.
Hold
I
up
like
your
that
hands.
idea. We're going to do that.
At the
That's
end.
good. This
Yes.
is the brand panel.
This is the
MPS,
brand panel.
Hi,
like-
beta. I like
All right. So I like that. That's good. See, improvisation. It's great. So, okay. I'm going to get right to it, just like the last section. I'd love to hear from each of you an example, because we have time. Nobody needs to go eat lunch or anything. We're going to go over, by the way.
By like an hour.
No one ever wants to go over when lunch is around the corner.
Oh, I know what's up, but it should be that insightful, right?
good way
None
to
of you
lower
are
it.
hungry, right?
No.
Okay.
It's a good way to lower the score. But.
All right, so I promise this will be good. So, and it's not up to me. I haven't even heard their stories here, and I'm dying to hear them. So do you have an example of something that negatively impacted the brand? And I say the brand because I want to keep it broad. Some people don't want to talk about negative things. I love talking about negative things. That's how we all get better, especially with DG over there. He's smiling. I hate on him every day. Yep. Oh, okay. So how was it dealt with and managed? I think that's important because we've all had that. I personally have had some really bad negative experiences with my brands that I caused on accident, kind of. Anyways, long story, not going to share it. So negative experiences and how you dealt with it. Ideally, ones that you've experienced yourselves or in a company that you've worked at. If
I
not,
have like
it's cool.
100, so
Yeah.
just a ClassPass, so I can jump in whenever you're ready.
I
You
can
go first.
Yeah, I can start. So a couple years ago, we were like about to start our first wave of hypergrowth. And it was challenging. We had never grown at that scale before. And when I say product and brand are intertwined, I think this is a good example. We had like some problems with our internet and like opening buildings on time, which is like a very basic value proposition of what we do. You should be able to do both of those things when you go to WeWork. And we felt it. Following our Twitter feed in those times was painful. But I do think, to your point, like negative moments making you better, I think it's actually an opportunity for brands to sort of change consumers' minds and based on how you respond. So, one of our brand voice pillars is to be professional but chill. So in those moments of intensity and anger, we responded with direct, honest communication. We made sure we always communicated when the internet would be fixed, and if we didn't know it was going to be fixed, we were honest about it and said that. And I think, while those are negative moments and they're painful, it really is an opportunity for a brand to grow and stand on its own 2 feet and not run away from the problem. So I consider it a really valuable learning experience.
So I'm actually going to go way back in my career to one of the most interesting things I've ever had to deal with that I hope no one ever has to deal with. So I think it was 2005. I worked at a trading company on Wall Street. And we were a privately held trading company, and 30% of the company was held by a private financial, by another institution. That other institution goes public. The thing that we held ourselves on for being this privately held, 500-person trading company was we are backed by Refco. It's this massive commodities trading company. So fun fact about them, they are the fastest bankruptcy post-IPO in history. And that was the company that was backing us. And to put it into context, everyone on the floor Sometimes you'd pick up the phone and say, hey, I work for FXCM, and sometimes you'd pick it up and say, hey, this is Refco. Like, that's how close we all were. And you traded shifts every quarter, so you never knew which company you were going to be working for. So they end up going bankrupt, and we have tens of thousands of customers who are our customers and are also their customers. So this gets announced. We don't know. The CEO hid $2 billion in debt before they went public. So we ended up having to, and I was relatively junior in my career, and had to now deal with this because there was also no PR person. Why would we have a PR person? And I was running digital and had to jump in and figure out, what do you say to customers? Because when you have this degree of brand crisis, it is, okay, what's the market going to say about you? What is press going to say about you? What are customers going to say about you? And how do we now enable all of these different channels? So it was hardcore crisis communication. What is our press statement going to be? How do we proactively reach out to press that's covering the story? Because the story is, are we solvent? And what is going to happen to us and to all of our customers because they are backing us? So we had to do that. We had to go and proactively reach out to thousands of customers saying, hey, we are actually solvent. We then had to go and train our entire sales and customer service organization so they now knew what to say, what was happening in that entire situation, and really have these regular proactive communications. And the flip side of it is customers of Refco were coming to our physical office location to try to actually get their money from us, which was funny because we're like, we don't have bags of money sitting under the desk. Like, why are you showing up? And then had to deal with their really, really unhappy customers and actually had to get extra security for our entire building and had to then train security on what to say, where to direct people to. And we had the initial crisis and sort of damage to our brand. And then we had about a 6-month, what do we do after the entire thing happens? How do we rethink corporate structure? Because our credibility, the thing that gave us credibility is now the thing that is taking away from credibility as quickly as possible. So from a business standpoint, who do we need to buy this back and who do we sell this to and what business do we now sell this to? So we ended up getting another really reputable institution to come in and take the 30% stake, which was Lehman Brothers. So that was, it was good. And then AIG was we also got insurance for all of our customer accounts to really build credibility. And that was, we had AIG back us. So it was really fun. So that is the absolute worst case scenario.
I'm like so uncomfortable for her right now.
It was good.
I hear these stories and I'm just, do you guys see me? I like shake. I feel so bad because we all have to deal with this. Like every single one of our companies. It's like a day or a season or, sometimes the whole year.
And I was absolutely qualified to do all of this at the time.
Yeah, like no one, until it happens, you're like, who's going to handle this? Oh, me? Oh, good.
Fantastic.
I'm super excited. Yeah, so I think some of you might be familiar with kind of the story I'm going to say, but so ClassPass, we're 4 years old. We were made famous on a product that was unprofitable. Don't do that, by the way, when you're starting a business. Don't put an unprofitable product at the heart of it.
Us too.
Yeah, and and then in all honesty, like we have great brand equity. We have so many awesome customers, and they love ClassPass. We have awesome studios that love ClassPass, and that's what makes these sorts of stories so challenging because you're kind of starting up here, and anytime you let them down, it feels very visceral. So when I came in on my first week was the first price increase. So we were going to try to increase prices. We did 2 price increases against this product to see if we could make it profitable. We were doing a lot of product enhancements, a lot of features to try to make it work. Eventually, we had to sunset the product that made us famous. And in fact, Boston had one of the highest percentages of people on this product. So I was living and breathing by a Boston dashboard. But the gist of this is, when I did the first price increase, I remember I was like, we have to go out with the story about all the things we've tried to do that didn't work. We have to be honest about all the things we messed up as a business. We tried to build certain features, we tried to build studio limits, all these things. I won't go into the details. And I remember around the executive table, it was like, no, let's not do that. This is a price increase. It's a transactional moment with our customers. Let's keep it very specific to that. Let's not go into all the detail. We haven't figured out all of our business model yet. I don't want to be put out there in that way. And so that was my first big mistake, and I fall on that sword. Like, we kind of motivated around this very transactional narrative. And as you can expect, there was not a lot that we could do when the influx of conversation came at us, because there was no vulnerable story to tell. I couldn't be like, but we're trying all these things and they're not working and I just need to raise the prices because I want to keep the product. And like, that's what I felt like. And so then we went into the second price increase and we did it in a very different way. And it was just so much more of an honest answer. You know, we kind of went into different markets. We tried to move people to different products and try to give them more as we were updating the price. When it came time to sunset it, I'll never forget this. Our team, like for what it's worth, like that's your first team, right? Is like I have these 200 people that I show up with every day, and they're obsessed with ClassPass, and they're obsessed with our customers, and they are our customers. And to watch them feel like they're letting people down, you know, back to the point I made earlier this morning, it really is in the hearts of people. That is where your brand lives. And I was breaking about 40,000 people's heart that day. I was going to send a message that was going to break their hearts after I made a promise. And it was so brutal. But I went to the executive team and I was like, we're going to tell the full story. We're going to do the open letter on all the things we tried and the mistakes we made and what we hope to do in the future. And it's just going to be as vulnerable and honest, as real as it is, and let the press write what they will, and let the investors think what they will, and let the board say what they want. And everyone around the table was like, yeah. That's exactly what we're going to do. And it was just one of those moments where you're like, let's just say what it is and say, we have these great products now. We're going to keep building in this direction, and we think we can get you back to your value. And so that's what we did. And it was pretty awesome. Like, you hope that works. Like, I didn't sleep the night before or for like a month. Mm-hmm. And you just wake up and you're like, well, I made the case, and here we go. And the influx, while it was noisy and loud, and we had, you know, New York Times, everyone in the world picked up on this story. We had a lot of customers come at us very upset. How could you do this again? They didn't cancel. And a lot of them came to our defense. And a lot of reporters wrote great stories. And a lot of entrepreneurs wrote stories about how you make a hard decision and you like do it in the right way. And so, you know, it was one of those days. And then we had a team meeting at the end of the day. I'll never forget this. And it was like, this is not going to end today. We have months. We have maybe a year ahead of us to keep building to fulfill the promise we originally made. And I think that's what we talk about when we talk about product and brand being so close. I've never seen a more intensely motivated team than I did that day. Because you just like looked them in the eye and you're like, we have to go build fast. We owe them this. And they're like, we do. And so it's been pretty epic. I mean, it's such a hard story, and it was really the hardest day of my career, not gonna lie. But it motivated you in the right way. And I think a lot of times when you let your customers down with your brand, you can spin it into resetting the standard of how you perform, I think, if you do it right.
It's honestly, it's the people are genuinely understanding. Yeah. And if you treat people that way, and if you treat your customers that way, is we're all human and we all screw up, and sometimes we try to screw up much more infrequently than we try to sort of exceed expectations. But I found if you have a close customer base and you are honest and you are open with them of like, hey, this is what happened, this is how we will make it better, it can in a lot of ways build that much tighter relationship with your customers. Yeah. And the ones who sort of rise out of that to go, you know what, it's not a big deal, we're here and we support you, those are going to be your longer term customers. Those are going to be your advocates. And those are the customers that you want to go out of your way to reward and say thank you to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to take a quick break and let you guys know some news. So your tweets are working. I'm getting these Slack messages from some team I'm on. I'm on a bunch of teams. And they said, Hiten is sending us subliminal messages about a brand that's not launched yet via other people's tweets. So all of you, keep doing what you're doing. It's working. It's really working. Okay, so this is probably going to be almost the last thing, unless we all want to keep going. But I think that'll be a joint. Actually, no, we're going to do the MPS, so it's not going to be a joint decision.
But also excited.
So last one. I know all of you have shared a whole bunch of different lessons. There's been a lot of tweeting. I'm sure a lot more notes being taken. Some positivity, but it's not because of me. It's because of them, right? Better be. Anyways, so what I guess this last question is something that I would ask any of these folks if I were meeting them personally and wanted to know kind of, you know, I'm going to use this terminology, I hate it, but pick their brains. So anybody using that terminology, please don't use it. That's not cool. Like, no one wants their brain picked. That's like surgery or something. It kind of hurts. Anyways, this question is, you know, you've shared a lot. You've shared a bunch of lessons, but what's something you haven't shared that you would give someone advice on about brand, regardless of what stage of business they are. And if you wanted to, you could break it up by stage, because there's been some tweeting going on to me about asking certain questions, but I'm not going to ask those questions because there's actually an app for that built into the conference that like DG is not doing the best job promoting. So it's called Helpful. They're a sponsor too, so you should be using that to ask all the panelists questions. I think we're all on there, including myself, but don't ask me anything. So yeah, what's the lesson if I were to if we were in personally talking and you had to give it? Like I said, you could break it out by stage if that's helpful, but we've got a few minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that we heard your wisdom.
Yeah. It's hard. I guess starting from early stage, I would say focus on the product before you start with visual identity and colors and voice guidelines and all that stuff. I think if the product doesn't work, your brand won't work, so I would invest all time on that. And then I would say it's actually, as a customer-centric brand, maybe later stage, it's hard to build a brand. I think you have to create a structure that allows it to grow organically, like a living, breathing thing, and focus on what your customers are doing and celebrate what they like about it and what they love, and index on those experiences. And I do think I'm not the first one to say this, but brands are like people. So I think knowing your audience is crucial, and knowing the sort of the situation in the scenario. So I might be one way in a job interview, but a different way at a social event, but I'm the same person. Same thing with a brand. If you're communicating in a moment of crisis or a moment that you have an upset member or customer, you can have a different type of delivery and tone in that moment than when you're celebrating one of their success moments. So being able to, I think, adapt and treat a brand like it's flexible, I think, is an important lesson that I've personally learned.
I can cover late stage.
Yeah.
So Joanna said something earlier that I thought was great, and she has focused a lot of her career on sort of early stage, mid stage companies. I love that she's an early stage marketer. It scares the shit out of me. But I've sort of
Me too.
And I've kind of hopped later, and I've done mid-stage, late-stage, public, and I find the brand piece a little different in each area, and of coming in a lot later. And I've had to go through and say, we're going to do a rebrand, and we need to define who we are at a $50 million company and at a company in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And the things that I always come up with is, don't expect me to come in and tell you who you are, and I'm the new marketer. And you have 150 employees, 1,500 employees, 5,000 employees, and you're asking me to define your brand. You've already defined your brand. It is my job to help you articulate this. So if you are coming into a company that already has customers, already has product market fit, already has an employee base, your job is to really get a better understanding of who you are and what's authentic, because that authenticity is extremely, extremely important. So a lot of my job becomes the translation of what is the authentic representation of what already exists, and then what is the vision and what's the long term and how do I refine this? But it always has to start with what is the kind of authentic core of who the people and company already are. And then the other thing that is the kind of core anchor point for me is the flip side is, who exactly is our customer? So who is our customer? What makes them them? Because if you want brand to be an accelerator, you can't have a brand that represents one thing and your customer is in a totally different side of the planet. So understand who your customer is, not our customer is an IT decision maker, but who they are as people, what their core values are, who they actually are as humans, what they care about, what they interact with. Understand your company culture, what the market perceives you as, and start to figure out what the overlays are.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm getting in trouble.
Oh, because we're over time.
But you have to go.
Okay,
And
rapid fire.
I'm going to take the heat.
I love it. I'll do it in less than 30 seconds. From the transactional side, even if you're early, I would say that you need to have a conversation about brand budget. Mm-hmm. And that could just be a person, it could be an agency to support with identity early, it could be amplification boost budgets on paid social. I don't care. The reality is that you will have great stories, you will have great moments, and they need some money behind them to reach more people. So I would just say have the conversation, because you don't want to not have that conversation for a couple of years and all of a sudden be like, I need a brand budget. It's like not going to work. And the second thing, I was going to say a little bit about customer stories and putting them at the heart of things. If you bake that into the mentality and build in the right vehicle, that's pretty powerful. But instead, I'll finish with the third one, which is you should strive for simple. I do not overcomplicate this. You sit down with someone, you're like, tell me about your brand, and they give you like 8 words they want to own. Like, Volvo owns 1, and they're lucky they got that one, right? And so I would say keep it super simple. We go through all these exercises, and we always land on the same 1 or 2 words. So let those be your words, and just do them in exceptional ways. Don't try to be more than you are, because it makes it harder in the long run. So keep it simple.
All right, 2 more things. You're good, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Do it.
We need a selfie.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to do the MPS thing, but a different way than I thought earlier, because I'm still getting in trouble, right?
All right.
All right,
we're
selfie.
selfieing. Wait, I feel like we should have
Do
done
a
MPS
selfie.
first.
I know. I'm sorry. I fucked up. There we go.
Framer.
All right.
We're framing it.
Okay, so
It's a good one.
whoever wants to say the MPS thing, they're going to tweet it at us.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Yeah. What is it?
1 to 5.
How would you
On
like
a scale of 1 to 10,
1 to
how
10.
likely are you to
Recommend.
recommend
This
our
panel.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Hands up.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah,
1
tweet it
being,
out.
Don't be a
oh
fun.
my
We can do
gosh,
that.
no. 10 being,
Oh, I like that.
this is the greatest thing in
10,
the
9
universe.
promoter. Guys, 10 or 9. Just put up both hands, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Thank
polite.
you. Thank you for actually, yeah. See, there we go.
right,
This
we're
is so
good.
fun.
Cool.
Perfect. If you're less than a 10, I don't even see it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.